So Maryellen is the founder of San Francisco Family Therapy and is licensed as a marriage and family therapist in California. She's a Gottman certified therapist for couples. Her clinical experience includes work in preschool through 12th grade education settings, nonprofit mental health agencies, and as a school social worker and in private practice. Maryellen is a bringing baby home educator through the Gottman Institute, a prepare and enrich facilitator, and has specialized training in emotional freedom techniques, couple relationships, family systems, child trauma, and attention and behavioral issues with children. Maryellen writes, speaks, and provides training regularly to school and parent groups and community-based nonprofits on parenting and child development topics. She provides parenting, coaching, and workshops through Messy Parenting, Progress, Not Perfection. Without further ado, we're super excited to have Maryellen, and I'll hand it over to her.
Thank you so much. I feel like I'm so old the longer the bio gets. All right, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to have plenty of time for questions at the end. So if you have any problems at all seeing my screen, or technically, please put it in the chat. Pooja's right here. And I just want to make sure that everybody, oops, I don't want to do that. Then I want to present. There we go. Okay, technically not challenged right now. Okay. All right, so today we're here to talk about something called the Family Emotional Bank Account. And where this idea comes from is the Gottman's research, 40 years of longitudinal research on what makes relationships work. And when they were approached by a hospital in Washington about, what happens in families when families have a baby, when they bring a child home. And so they looked at 0 to 3, what happens in families and coupled relationships. And even if you're not coupled, you partner with people in your life around parenting. And so they came up with strategies that were all evidence-based and through their research that were true to find ways in which they can keep families more connected and make the path of parenting a lot more enjoyable and keep those connections high. So I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about cultural and global context. So we do have participants who registered, and this is being recorded from all over the globe, which is exciting. So when we think about children and child development, one of the questions that Dr. Thomas Weisner in his TED Talk, he gives a great TED Talk on this, is what's the most important thing to think about? And people start saying things like, oh, love and attachment, and what lens do you look through? But the most important thing in child development to look through before you look through any of that is a global context, because only 12% of children in the world grow up in a Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic nation. That means that 88% of children do not. And so this is the most important thing to think about, is where the child is growing up, because this will affect their family structure, their resources, their access to education, access to health, access to medical. And all of these things affect child development as well, especially if you have a child that's not typically developing. So before we get into the emotional bank account, I want to start with some really basic ideas that may be familiar to you to help us think of more context. So we think of the cultural global context. We think of the context that families are structured in. Families come in all different types, and they also come with different types of brains, okay? And what I mean by that is our experience influences our brains and how we react, okay? So sometimes you have a baby that might be like hard to soothe. Sometimes you have a colicky baby. Sometimes you have the easy baby, the passive baby that doesn't matter if a truck rolls by its ear, it doesn't do anything. So let's talk a little bit about the brain, okay? So when we talk about children and connection and parenting, we want to remember that children are not little adults. And a lot of parents talk to kids with what we call little adult syndrome. Thomas Phelan talks a lot about this in his 1, 2, 3 Magic DVDs, which are actually really helpful in terms of behavior and positive discipline. But this little adult syndrome, where we forget that we didn't come online with a full executive functioning. We came online with our amygdala, which is what we call the downstairs brain. And the amygdala at birth is formed at about 60%. And the amygdala, this downstairs brain, as you can read on the slide, is where our feeling center is, okay? It allows us to act before we think. So we come out acting, responding to stimuli. It allows us to feel before we think. It's responsible for the fight, freeze response, and of course, bodily functions, okay? Then we've got our upstairs brain. So we kind of think downstairs brain, upstairs brain. And our upstairs brain, one thing about the amygdala, by the time a baby is a year old, that amygdala is fully formed like that of an adult. So your downstairs brain comes on 100% by a year. So that means toddlers, babies have the same fear, the same anger. They feel it the way that we feel it. So then we could talk about the upstairs brain. Now, this is the part of our brain that we use to think before we act. So we may feel angry, but then we say, upstairs brain comes online and we say, I'm angry and I could probably get what I want if I talk in this way to the clerk at the bank, right? So we don't yell for what we want. Some people do, but we try not to. We try to regulate ourselves. It helps us in decision-making, problem solving, controlling our feelings, in sense of, can we check our feelings so that they don't have control over us, which is what toddlers can't do. And then it helps us focus on, things that we're interested, tasks, concentration. So you see this starting to come online when babies are mesmerized by your face. They're mesmerized by the doll that, they want to take everywhere with them. They're mesmerized by running water out of the faucet, and they're concentrating, and parts of their executive functioning are starting to develop and come online. This is the part that also allows us to empathize. Can I think about what it felt like to feel sad? Can I think about that situation that's making you feel sad? And can I connect to that? So it's a high level, right? So, we'll talk about this later, but when your children are, one of the questions was, what do I do when my kid has a temper tantrum in public? Well, they are not thinking, it's going to be very humiliating for mother if I decide to throw this box of Cheerios, which happens to crack open and now is all over on the floor. There's no connection or thought in that sense about how mother might feel, but yet mother might feel, you don't even care about what this looks like for me in the store when you melt down, right? Because we're expecting empathy from a human that doesn't have that necessarily full capacity yet. Although babies do empathize, and you see them empathize, they'll cry, right? So if a baby's crying, another baby will start crying next to it, and then another baby, and they do have the ability to empathize, but not with the high level thinking. Okay, and then self-awareness, am I aware of my own self in time and space? Am I aware of how I feel? Am I aware that I'm hungry and that I need something? And I would say even adults sometimes, hunger sneaks up on you where you realize you're hangry before you realize you're actually hungry. So I know that Ellen Dodge presented a couple months ago on Kimochi's Parenting Partner, which is a social emotional program. And I like their phrase of feelings fuel behavior. So we think of this as feelings kind of push upstairs, and they really fuel whatever it is that we're doing, okay? So if we're angry, we want to go, oh, and as adults, we realize we can't do that in all settings, okay? Sad feelings fuel refusals. Angry feelings fuel temper tantrums. Frustration, hunger, loneliness fuel meltdowns, okay? So we think about this amygdala and our executive functioning, our upstairs brain and our downstairs brain as we go into what I'm going to talk about, okay? I also want to put this in the context of behavior. So some of you out there might love to be structured and understand behavior. So I think it's really important to understand a basic concept of behavior so that you can learn how to be more of a behavior coach with your child, because parents are constantly asking for a change in behavior or a repeat of behavior. So I like the ABC model for behavior. This is what we used when I was working at UCSF and working with kids who struggled with executive functioning. This is not your reading ABCs. It's a different kind of ABC. A is for antecedent. So an antecedent just means what comes before a behavior. B is for behavior, and C is for consequence, what comes after a behavior. And consequences can be negative, neutral, or positive. Consequences is simply what comes after. And if you think of consequences like that, it's a lot easier to tell your child a consequence of like, well, when you smash your truck on the rock, it's going to break into pieces. Oh, you smashed your truck on the rock, it broke into pieces, right? It simply is describing what has happened. So when you think about changing behavior, you can only change two things: what came before the behavior or what comes after the behavior. So as you think of like putting your coaching hats on in terms of getting your children to have more pro-social positive behavior, or really helping them understand how to regulate themselves more so they have a better response from other people, and you want them to change their behavior, you want to think more about what comes before and after, not so much get stuck on the actual behavior itself, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some antecedents, and one of the antecedents is the family emotional bank account. It's a huge antecedent that will really heavily influence behavior in a positive way, not just with your toddler, with your co-parent, with your whoever's helping you with your child's teacher. Emotional bank accounts are really helpful in keeping connected to talk and work out through difficult things. All right, so now let's talk about building your emotional family bank account, okay? Why is it important to have a family emotional bank account? Because if you do not have one, if you do not have good things happening between you, you probably won't feel motivated to do much, right? So we all have emotional bank accounts with our friends, with our peers, with our work colleagues. And it's important to have positivity in relationship. Why? Because we're all here to connect and attach. Very simple. We're all here to connect and attach. So three main things to think about when we look at relationships are, who are these relationships with? Okay, so you want to have an emotional bank account, with babies, with toddlers, with preschoolers, with children, with teens, with your co-parents, with your partners, with your relatives, and with your friends, okay? And sometimes you want to have an emotional bank account with strangers, right? Because you want a stranger to have a little emotional bank account with you, the pass it forward type of thing. So with a human family. So I'm going to talk about the emotional bank account. I'm going to break down bids and turning. And turning means turning towards somebody. Am I responding? Turning away. And then more about responding to bids, and specifically how you can respond to your child's bids. So we're going to play a little video. This is from the Gottman Institute, and this is a great video that explains how this works between partners, and you can think to yourself how you would extend this, okay?
Ever wonder why some couples make it and others don't? Scientist Dr. John Gottman did. He spent 40 years studying thousands of couples to find out exactly what separates the relationship masters from the relationship disasters. Shakespeare compared love to a rose. Gottman uses a different metaphor, an emotional bank account. You know how a regular bank account works, so what's an emotional bank account? It represents the positive and negative balance in your relationship. The best couples maintain a high balance. Couples that break up are often in the red. You make deposits through positive interactions, and you withdraw through negative ones. What does a deposit look like? It's a simple act of showing your partner that you care for and support them. It's as easy as sending your partner a good luck text before a meeting, or cooking them dinner after a long day. And pay attention when your partner shows you their admiration and support. Notice when they're investing in your relationship.
Thank you.
A withdrawal is either hurtful behavior toward your partner or ignoring their invitations to connect. But withdrawals and deposits don't have equal weight. In fact, Gottman found it takes 5 positive interactions to make up for 1 negative one. Happy couples maintain at least this 5-to-1 ratio. If you make constant deposits and keep your balance high, you're saving up for a rainy day when you'll need to cash in on that goodwill. Gottman notes that small daily deposits, like asking your partner how their day was, is far more important than the occasional over-the-top romantic gesture. Positivity leads to more positivity. This is not about keeping score. It's about investing in your relationship and your shared emotional bank account, moving from me to we. So keep your balance high by doing nice things every day and recognizing when your partner does them for you. You'll build up that emotional bank account in no time.
Okay. So when you transition as a parent, it involves moving from a me-ness to this we-ness, sometimes with a co-parent, sometimes without a co-parent. And this emotional bank account kind of tracks the cumulative, what I call relationship hearts or positive deposits, which are earned or deducted in relationships through these positive or negative interactions or bids. So the goal is to have excess positive hearts in the emotional bank account with your children and with anyone else in your household, okay? So the phrase that we use a lot in Bringing Baby Home, which is the program that prepares parents to welcome a child into their life, is small things often. It is not the grand gestures. Even when parents are divorcing and maybe one parent has less custody than another parent, we advise the parent with less custody to not make like every Saturday amazing for this kid. It's really about taking them grocery shopping with you, letting them see your daily routine, having a special outing in the afternoon. So small things often that children are much happier overall when their parents are turning towards them, responding to them, rather than getting a gift every time their parent, goes away on a business trip or comes back on a business trip or has to neglect them for some reason. And there are reasons, legitimate ones, that some people struggle on parenting and can't spend as much time. But if you focus on when you are spending time and really being present, small things often. So I'm going to play another video which explains this even further. So this is about 4 minutes.
Imagine you hear your partner let out an exasperated sigh. In that fleeting moment, you have a choice. Keep going about your day or ask what's on their mind. These small, daily crossroads may seem insignificant, but the choices you make while interacting with your partner could, over time, make or break your relationship. The sigh is what relationship researchers Drs. John and Julie Gottman would call a bid for connection. Bids can be small or big, verbal or nonverbal. We can choose to turn towards our partner in these moments and accept their bids, or turn away from them and ignore their bids. The Gottmans have spent the last 4 decades studying thousands of couples to answer the question, what separates the relationship masters from the relationship disasters? They found a critical difference in how each type of couple responds to bids for connection. In these moments, masters turn towards each other 86% of the time. Disasters turn towards each other only 33% of the time. A tendency to turn towards your partner forms the basis of trust, emotional connection, passion, and a satisfying sex life. When couples break up, it's usually not because of big issues like conflict or infidelity. More often, it's a result of the resentment and distance that build up over time when partners continually turn away from bids for connection. So take a page from the Relationship Masters Playbook. Notice when your partner makes a bid. Show interest. Ask questions. Nod, listen, and put away your screens. Choose to turn towards your partner.
Okay, so this concept of, and I'm going to show you some bid turning with a child, this concept of, am I noticing the other person? Am I noticing my toddler? Am I noticing my child? How often am I able to, respond to a bid? And the response doesn't have to be long-ended. The response can be, okay, oh, I see that. So I'm going to show you this with a parent. This is very short. It's about 1.5 minutes. It's just a clip from here of a mom who is responding to her toddler. Oops, let me go back because I just skipped over that. Okay, here we go.
Ankylosaurus.
Wow, and what's this one?
Ankylosaurus.
And this one?
Brontosaurus.
Yeah, and this one?
Velociraptor.
Is it?
Yeah.
And what's this one?
Pausaurolophus.
And this one?
Diplodocus.
And this one?
Monoclonius.
And this one?
Brachiosaurus.
And this one here?
Spinosaurus.
And this one?
Stegosaurus.
And this one?
Triceratops.
And this one?
T-Rex.
That is very clever.
Long dinosaurs have a long tails as well.
Oh yes, they do. That's very good. And they're spiky, aren't they? When he's telling me things, I ask him questions and show a lot of interest. I think the whole point about this reconnecting with your child is that.
So it's just that point of reconnecting with your child. So it doesn't have to be long. It's more about the quality of the interaction versus the quantity of the interaction. So somebody had said something like, what do I do about my toddler when they're, throwing a tantrum in public? And sometimes it can be literally as simple as rolling a ball back and forth with your toddler for about 2 or 3 minutes before you have to transition and go out to the grocery store. It's about making these small deposits. So, this is really, over time, what happens, when you work with, teenagers, young adults, even middle-aged adults, and you ask them about their family of origin and what they remember, it's the 1,000 paper cuts that feel more wounding sometimes than, the 1 or 2 bad moments that they remember as hard. It's the constant feeling of, I don't think my parent was ever interested in me. They didn't have time for me. They didn't show an interest. They didn't show up for things. So this is why these small things, you want your children, you don't have to give your children everything in the world, but if you give them your attention, that just goes so far in helping them feel connected and safe. And children want to feel safe and secure that you're there. Are you there for me? Are you there for me? I don't know if you know that Dr. Seuss book, Are You My Mother? Are You My Mother? And the little one goes around looking for its mother. So, there's effort needed to gain points in the emotional bank account. Okay, so Gottman found that during times of conflict, so when you're having that bad day with your toddler and things are going hard all day long, the ratio of positive to negatives needs to be still 5 to 1 in a difficult day. So you're still giving some attention. You're still, it's one of those like up and down days where you feel like you're in an S curve all day. And it's like, we got through the morning and then things seemed okay. And then they, tanked, mid-morning. And then we seemed like we were back on our way home at lunch and things seemed good. And then it's just one of those days. And we have those emotional roller coaster days as well. So on those days, you still need to have positive deposits in your bank account. But get this, in times of non-conflict, when you're not having the roller coaster day, when things seem like things are good, the ratio needs to be 20 to 1, which if you think about it really happens when you're thinking about small things often. So these are not grand gestures, I played ball for 3 hours today. This is all those little moments. Oh, mama, a block, oh, I see the block, it's these little, what are you cooking? I'm cooking, rice and putting them up on a chair. You can watch, you can hold a spoon and you can pretend to stir in this while I'm stirring this, all these little tiny moments and you may even have caregivers that help with this. Okay, so let's give some examples of what are bids that can be responded to in terms of adult interaction, and then we'll talk about child interaction. So any kind of attention. I mean, if you get attention from another adult, doesn't feel nice. Your friend calls you out of the blue. Maybe you have a co-parent, a partner that gives you attention about, how'd your presentation go today? Conversation, just having conversation. Somebody turns away from their phone, says, oh, let's not watch TV after dinner. Let's sit down and talk about how the day was. I want to hear about our toddler. I haven't seen both of you all day. Tell me, what was the highlight? What did they do that was new? Relief, just a shared sense of relief with each other can be a bit, oh, thank you so much for helping me unload the dishwasher, right? That's turning towards somebody offering relief to the other partner. Humor, affection, sex, intimacy, dreaming together, playing together, even as adults, let's play a board game after dinner. Excitement, sharing excitement. Oh, you got that new sales today. That's so great. I'm so excited. So that mirroring. And if you're listening to me, you're realizing I do some of these things with my toddler. So this is where you see the family emotional bank account. Providing emotional support, empathy, and then sharing shared meaning, goals, purpose. Shared meaning is we celebrate, birthdays the same way. We celebrate passing of time a certain way. Having goals, we're both working towards X. We want to save for this. In purpose, we do this because we believe in helping others. We do this because we want a future for our child, those types of things. Okay. So responding to bids, there are 3 ways you can respond, okay? Turning towards, where you get a connection with somebody. So if I say, I had a really hard day, and my partner says, tell me about your hard day, turning towards, okay? Turning away or ignoring, the toddler says, for the umpteenth time, I like dinosaurs, and you've said yes probably 30 times, and you just ignore that last 30th, right? Or it's the first time, I like dinosaurs, and you're busy, you're distracted, and you ignore it, okay? It's not meant to be mean-spirited at all, but it has a negative effect, okay? And then turning against, I don't want to talk about dinosaurs anymore, right? And instead of saying, but I'll talk about buses, or I'll talk about balls, or I'll talk about unicorns, and you don't, okay? So it's a negative. So I call it, it's a little heartbreak, right? So let me, where's my, I think it's forward, sorry. Okay, so building awareness of needs. So we have something called mindless moments. So sometimes you can just be like unaware of a child's needs. Like, for example, I could be in the grocery store, this has happened, and I've seen like the child drop something, the toddler drop something, and the parent's not aware because they're trying to get something else. And then the child starts to have a meltdown. And sometimes I'll just say, oh, you know what, they just dropped that thing. And then the parent will say, oh, thank you so much, you know, because you just didn't know. You don't know. You're in a mindless moment and you just don't know. So you ignore a bid because you're preoccupied. This is also really hard when bids are unclear. You know, you're not being asked in a straightforward way. So this could be from a partner. They might be saying like, are you going out tonight? And they're not saying, I really need you to stay in because I had a hard day and I need to reconnect with you. Or being really confused, like, your toddler's not being soothed in any way, you're not sure. So for example, you know, sometimes things happen and you don't see what has happened, so you don't know that the ball rolled under the couch and now your toddler's really upset and you're like, I don't know what's wrong, there's nothing wrong, okay? Negative bids, you know, maybe losing your temper, so you're correcting before you connect. So that's being out in public with that temper tantrum, and maybe you're tired and you don't have the patience maybe you had at the beginning of the day, now that it's the end of the day, and now you had to run out to the store because you didn't realize you were out of milk because your baby threw up, and then you've got your toddler in tow with you, right? I mean, it's messy. And so you snap, you know, and you try to say, don't do that. So you correct before you connect, okay? And then mindful moments, you know, when you have that mindful moment, like the mother reading to the little boy, you make a conscious, dedicated effort to connect, okay? So mindful responses to bids are intentional and have a purpose, just like the mother reading the book. They make the sender feel heard, valued, and important. That little boy felt important, and that baby was getting borrowing benefits, I call it. That baby felt important too. You saw the baby trying to join in. This may seem like a lot to get out of a quick touch, glance, or sentence, but it's like depositing coins to equal dollars. So what this means is, let's say your toddler is playing and you just come up and you rub their back, letting them know I'm here, right? That goes so deep for them than if you had just walked past them when going through the room. It's the same thing for you if you have a partner, a co-parent, a parent, someone who comes up to you and just says, hey, it's good to see you. And that touch, I see you, I hear it, it goes further for you than you think it does. So each time a mindful response, intentional, is made, it accumulates in this emotional bank account. And this gives you, just like a regular bank account, a savings, so that when you have to write out those checks and cash out because you've had a hard day with each other, it's been messy, it's been a roller coaster, you still have that cushion and to take from, that you have a lot of goodwill going on between both of you. So mindful responses increase positive perspective in the relationship, and over time, increase your satisfaction with anyone in your family, whether it's your partner, whether it's your baby, your toddler. These things increase satisfaction over time. And if you remember back to the video, parents don't break apart because of one big thing. They break apart because of the small things over time. Kids don't end up in therapy in their 20s because of one terrible thing their parent did. They end up in therapy because of the many things that didn't happen in terms of feeling connected growing up. So Everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, and how you connect, make those positive deposits, give hearts, or fail to connect, have your little heartbreaks, neglects, missed opportunity in a relationship are the results of your choices and priorities. And it's hard to draw boundaries in modern life, I understand, but this is where we have to really decide that we're important enough as a person, as a parent, and that your kid is important enough and it's more important than X. So I'm going to play a little tiny film that shows emotional deposits in the bank account and what can happen.
เขาจะได้อะไรถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวันเขาจะไม่ได้อะไรเลยไม่ได้รวยขึ้นไม่ได้ออกทีวีไม่มีใครรู้จักไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้นเพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้สิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
So that is making a lot of emotional deposits in the bank account and what you get back from it. So let's talk about your kids, because you probably do a lot of this already, my guess is. You just didn't know that it had a name, that you were building a deep emotional bank account. So bids in infants and toddlers. So let's talk about, what does a bid look like? So a common bid for attention from a toddler, or for comfort, or for something they need, sleep, hunger. The bids don't come out in words like, I'm hungry, right? They come out with like protesting behavior, like, I don't want to go. So hunger and thirst, fuel behavior. These are bids usually for getting a need met. Feeling tired, needing that sleep. When they're in pain, they'll make bids for your support, your connection. When they're in need of affection, they will make a bid to you. Toddlers are often reaching. When they have fear of a stranger, new situation, they will bid to you. So this is like you're dropping off. You're like, you've played with this friend many times before, but it's a party situation, obviously not in a pandemic, but, and then they don't want you to leave, and you had scheduled to meet somebody for a walk, you're kind of stuck. And so those are hard bids to often respond to. And then needing help to gain control of an environment. This is really important for toddlers and babies. They'll make a lot of bids when they don't feel like they're in control of the new situation. So often they'll want like someone to hold them if you're in a new environment. And that's them trying to say, help, I need to get control of this, I don't understand. Because remember, downstairs, upstairs, they feel scared, it's new, it's different. They don't think, we're just visiting grandma in her new living facility. They don't understand this. So ways that you can respond, to bids, or ways that they will show their bids to you is they may hug, so they'll want attention, they may kiss, they'll cry and fuss, they'll throw tantrums. So the public temper tantrum, hopefully it's not happening often, but if it is happening often, it is a way of getting attention. And there's something about it in which negative attention seeking, we need to kind of flip the boat so they're more positive attention seeking than negative attention seeking. So that's about attention. Talking louder and louder. How many of you have a toddler or a little one that will be like, mom, 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 right? Climbing on a parent, clinging, misbehaving. So these are all bids. So if you think about, if you look at these and think, well, I love the bid that's the hug or the kiss or hold me, like I'm willing to respond to that, but look how many other bids could be seen as difficult to attend to, difficult to respond to. But if you think about them as just communication, my child's trying to communicate to me that they need something, it depersonalizes it. It's not about you being a good parent or a bad parent. It's just about the downstairs brain trying to communicate something, and that the upstairs brain is not online yet. Kids don't even have a concept of like something's gone forever until the age of 7 or 8. Kids don't read usually until between the ages of 6, 7, and 8. So if you think about the way school is structured as the brain is coming online in different ways. So the little ones are at like such a low level in terms of what's happening for them and what they're able to articulate. All right, so we want to think about emotion coaching. So what do we do? What do we do when bids are hard to respond to, when we're not sure what emotions mean? So I'm going to play a little video on emotion coaching.
Emotion coaching. Emotion coaching is an approach which focuses on the development of emotional regulation through supportive relationships. Children, young people, parents, and professionals can all benefit from using emotion coaching. All emotions are innate, meaning we all have them, but that doesn't mean we can manage our emotions easily. We learn to understand and regulate our emotions through our relationships with others. Sometimes we experience emotions in a very big way, making it more difficult for us to process how we are feeling. For example, Charlie is feeling really sad because she is not being listened to. We all feel sad, angry, or frustrated sometimes, but Charlie is still learning how to manage these big feelings. Dan Siegel suggests that the brain is like a house, with an upstairs and downstairs. The upstairs brain is more complex and is where we learn, process language, and develop problem-solving and decision-making skills. With experience, problem-solving skills are refined, but the upstairs brain isn't fully formed until our mid-20s. The downstairs brain is responsible for breathing and impulsive reactions to strong emotions, like the fight, flight, or freeze response. Sometimes, when Charlie experiences very big emotions, she stays in the downstairs brain. On these occasions, she might act on the impulses she has, without thinking through the consequences. Before Charlie can understand and process these emotions, she needs support from a trusted adult, such as a parent, carer, or teacher. Once Charlie feels safe and calm, she can then be supported to move to the upstairs brain. Emotion coaching supports Charlie to be able to move from the downstairs brain to the upstairs brain through a process of co-regulation. Co-regulation is when a trusted adult is able to make a connection with Charlie and support her to feel safe, and this can help her to learn to manage these big feelings. Emotion coaching strengthens relationships through increased understanding and empathy. It is essential that the adult connects with the child's emotions rather than judging the child's reasons for feeling this way. This is achieved by the adult connecting with the child before correcting the behaviour. Emotion coaching has 5 key steps. 1. Notice the child's behaviour and tune in to the emotion beneath. 2. Connect with the child and recognise emotional times as opportunities for intimacy and teaching. 3. Listen empathetically and validate the child's feelings. 4. Help the child to verbally label emotions. 5. Set limits on the child's behaviour whilst helping the child to problem solve. There are a number of potential benefits to using emotion coaching. These include supporting children to regulate their emotions, promoting positive relationships between adults and children, increasing academic attainment, and helping adults to feel empowered to manage children's behaviour. If you think you could benefit from emotion coaching.
Okay, so this big piece of, do you feel like you're empowered and you have the resources to manage behavior? So building the emotional bank account with your family will help you stay connected and be more empathetic and create resiliency. So, keeping these positive balances high to weather the challenging times and the weathering moments. So let's talk about how, so one of the questions was, well, how do I do this, for my child? So there are many ways that you can invest in the family emotional bank account, okay? So kind of a high level mentally, it's providing opportunity for play, right? Maybe your child goes to preschool, so you're working hard to provide those opportunities. It's turning off screens. It's making the ordinary interesting. Toddlers are very interested in the ordinary. Preschoolers are interested in the ordinary. They're interested in shaving cream in the bathtub to draw with. They're interested on rice on a tray to make letters in. They're interested in water. They're interested in a paintbrush and a bucket of water to draw on the concrete. So really taking them outside to play. Providing these developmentally appropriate activities. You don't have to buy the fanciest toy to have it be developmentally appropriate at all. Crayons, paper, taking them for a walk, I Spies, all of these things that they can have access to their language with you, and you watch that toddler describe those dinosaurs. Well, I saw the page up close and I was like, oh, those are not the names, but he in his mind had really complicated dinosaur names that he was listing off. And you saw the mother didn't correct him. She's like, and what's that one? And what's that one? So, really joining them in their world is developmentally appropriate instead of forcing our world onto them. So, providing activities that can start to require longer attention spans. So, being attuned to when the block puzzle, they've mastered it, and maybe you find something a little bit more challenging. But if it's too challenging, you might get a temper tantrum because they're frustrated, right? So that downstairs brain and that upstairs brain. Reading with a child daily, singing to them, going to museums, plays that allow toddlers in is really important. And most big cities have free museum days. And in the pandemic, of course, that's not possible. But now the libraries have come online with some really interesting activities. There are even TV shows with preschool teachers, very simple TV shows, talking about activities. So since the pandemic, I think what people have realized is that they can have access to a lot more online content that's developmentally appropriate because agencies have really started to put more online. So reinforcing skills learned at school. So be aware of what they're learning at school and repeat, rinse and repeat. Ask the teacher, what did you do today? What does my kid like doing at school? What do you recommend? Rinse and repeat. That children love repetition. Coach them in independent activities. You know, 3-year-olds can help you cook. They really can. They can have simple activities like washing fruit in the sink. They can, you know, hold a dull knife and cut a strawberry at 3. Right? Depends on their fine motor. So getting them to have their own rag if you're dusting, getting them to, you know, arrange their stuffies on their bed, you know, and teaching them how to make their beds. So allowing them to practice without interfering, okay? So allowing them to do what they think looks like. If you say, here are some vegetables and go ahead and wash them, that you don't all of a sudden stick your hand and say, no, this is a better way of doing it. You know, let them figure it out. You know, spiritually, this is not necessarily religious. This is about developing faith in humanity, faith in other people, faith that you'll be there, modeling these high values, giving them purpose. It's really, you know, giving them purpose in the family. You're such an important part of our family. We read the most fun books with you at night, right? That gives a toddler purpose. I love learning about dinosaurs. I would never be learning without you. I love that you show us, you know, things at your level that we don't notice when we're out walking. Like toddlers notice everything when they're out walking that grown-ups, you know, miss, because, you know, they can kind of see under things. And then the social emotional pieces, right? So you're modeling love, receiving their love, giving them love, teaching empathy, because again, the downstairs brain can't do it. You need the upstairs brain. Modeling healthy relationships. So this is why it's called the family emotional bank account, so that they see you responding to bids, turning towards and making bids of your partner or other people in your house, and that person's responding to you. That's modeling healthy relationships. You know, helping them be successful in social settings, you know, especially when they re-enter. This is going to be a really big deal. You know, some preschools are back, you know, and some are not. And so they may need more help learning how to socialize again, right? Oh, may I have the ball? Can I play? Yes, you can play. You know, really simple things that they might not be practicing in the pandemic as frequently as they would if they were in school. You know, learning how to accept, right now we can't do this, but we can do this, right? So you can say, right now we have to leave, but when we get in the car, we can play I Spy the Red Truck game, right? So, you know, and then when they do that, say, you did such a good job accepting that we had to go, using that language with them, because that's a lifelong skill, accepting, right? That you have to learn to be okay when you do not prefer to do something. You know, you have to do something like you have to stop at a red light. We all practice accepting, and sometimes we don't want to. We want to relate. We want to just blow through it, right? But we don't, because it wouldn't be safe. So accepting is a really big skill that children learn. Allowing them to fail. Not making excuses like, oh, you smashed your truck on the rock, it broke. Okay, that happens, you know, and then helping them with their feelings. You know, do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? And then the next time they're more likely not to smash something on a rock because they've learned by experience, you know. So don't fix every mistake. Let them fix it. You know, let them figure out, oh, I have a drawing, I don't like this, I can draw something over it. They can fix it themselves. Let them figure this out. Allowing them to learn. And then investing intellectually, so modeling for them a love of learning, supporting their interests, you know, supporting having them see you have your own interests, praising effort, fostering strengths, being supportive and helping them find answers to their questions. So, you know, when your kid's like, why does this happen? You know, there's a lot of why, a toddler, why, especially in the 4-year-old range. I don't know, let's look that up. I'm not sure, let's ask an expert like grandma or grandpa or my neighbor, okay? So, you know, parenting support is so important at the toddler age. I read something recently that said, it's, you know, parents find the most difficult age to parent is 8. And I was like, what parents did they interview for that? Because 8-year-olds can toilet themselves and 8-year-olds can tell you that they're hungry, and 8-year-olds are pretty funny, but I think toddlers and teens are sometimes the harder ages to parent through, because they're not always communicating with you what they need and what they want. So it's important to have other humans that you trust, you know, having people who know you, have an intimate relationship with you, know how you parent, know your style, know your temperament, who can be supportive. You know, teachers, schools, pediatrician, coaches, counselors, when I work with parents, I'm often saying, well, what did your teacher think? Oh, I haven't asked. Ask, that's what they're there for. They want to be asked. And then doing things like you're doing today, workshops, articles, books, DVDs, On my website, there's a huge resource list of resources, and then Devie is its own resource as well for the toddlers. So just to kind of briefly go over, it's 12:53, and then we'll answer other questions if you have them. So easy family activities that help build the emotional bank account. We went through some of those already. This is a good one. How does a grandparent support grandchildren when they live far apart, when they haven't been able to visit due to the pandemic? I'm a big fan of snail mail, you know, coloring, toddlers coloring and mailing to their grandparents, and then having grandparents color something and mail something back. I think FaceTime video is wonderful, but give the grandparent something special, like say to them that she or he loves this song right now. So make sure that, you know, send them a video. This is a song, let's practice it, or can you sing it? Maybe your toddler gets on it, isn't interested in that. So you have like a backup plan. Oh, you know, a few minutes ago we were playing with, you know, trucks. Do you want to show grandma or grandpa your truck? So really helping the grandparent understand what the world is like of the toddler and making those kind of connections, making videos and sending them, and having grandparents send videos back. That's a really great one as well. Doing drive-by visits, driveway visits. These are all very helpful if you can do them. And then I have a friend who she lets her mother babysit for her. So really what that means is, like, when she gets into the shower, she sets up FaceTime and she says to the toddler, okay, I'm gonna hop in the shower, the door's open, and puts her phone in the shower, and she has FaceTime on with her mom, and then her mom will just call her, say, oh yeah, you need to go out now, you know, something's happening. But it's just a way of getting somebody involved, inviting the grandparent to story time at night, inviting them to bedtime, inviting them to eat lunch, right? So you can have them on FaceTime and your toddler's eating and your, you know, lunchtime with grandpa, okay? When somebody is submitted, there's so many distractions and I tend to bounce around and not be present. And this is the biggest thing with the emotional bank account, are missing bids, okay? So what I would say about that is get a Post-it note, literally, or write it on the back of your hand, be present. How many bids did I catch today? And then also talk, if you have a co-parent or any older children, about, we really want to practice being present and work on it as a habit, because it is a habit. So whatever you have to do to remind yourself of, hey, I'm just going to focus on being present and just responding to bids all day today. That's going to be exhausting for a person who does get distracted easily or has multiple children, who's working from home, but it will help shift the habit. How do you keep your emotions in check during stressful work times while managing children in school? What I would say to you is that you have to focus on your downstairs brain too. So if you're feeling super stressed out, you have to think about how to get your amygdala in a better state, how to do some mindfulness for yourself, how to get sleep, how to make sure you're eating. So if you do not take care of yourself, it's going to be very hard to give anybody anything else. So remember at the beginning, I said something about boundaries, that it is sometimes about setting boundaries that other people don't like, but you do that for yourself and for your family life and for your toddler. How to handle toddler tantrums in public. Okay, so remember that slide we saw at the beginning, the ABC slide about antecedents? I'm going to send Pooja an email with some very concrete things that you can do for public temper tantrums. But what I would say is, it's all about the setup before you leave the house. And it's about having a plan when you're out. So if you know you're going to be out for 3 hours, right? So are you in public in 20 minutes, 3 hours, 4 hours, that you're prepared, right? So that your child is fed, they've had some attention, maybe you give them some attention in the car, you sing a song together, you know how long your outing is going to be. And if the outing is extended, you have things in your, you know, your backpack. You've got a snack, you've got water, you know where the bathroom is, and you do have to have more planning. And again, that's like the upstairs brain, where I think parents are often feeling like they're just running on empty on their downstairs brain as well. But just taking those few extra minutes to plan the outing will decrease the chance of a public temper tantrum significantly. And then, like I said, I'll send an email with some very specific things around tantrums. But if you're putting into this emotional bank account, I guarantee you, if you're really paying attention to bids and to responding to bids, you will see shifts in behavior towards the positive. Children regulate a lot better when their parent is there and with them and being present to them. And sometimes you then get longer amounts of time where you can focus on your own work. So sometimes when you front load into these bids and this attention, you end up having a toddler who feels more secure, so that they can look at their book longer or play with their toys longer. So you get a little bit more time at your at your desk. So it's sometimes when you're just running on empty and stopping all the time and doing the quick refill, it's not as good as if you do the big refill and you prepare for what's coming next. So best ways to handle stubborn behavior in children. I wasn't sure what they meant by stubborn behavior, or if they meant stubborn children. So what I would say about that is, this is behavior that you can't seem to change. It's hard to, you're having difficulty getting the behavior to change somehow. And I would think back to that ABC model I showed you about, thinking about, well, what comes right before the behavior? What comes after? Is my child hungry? Are they tired? When does the behavior happen? How long does the behavior last? What seems to happen? Well, how do I respond to that behavior? And so when you start answering those questions, it's like being a detective. You'll start understanding you can play and change different things. And most of the things I think are going to happen about what comes before that behavior. You know, anything from reading to a book of like, hands are not for hitting, right? Responding to a child, you know, a stubborn behavior can be hitting, biting, kicking, right? These can kind of last in a certain way. So for example, like if your child goes to hit, you don't grab, because grabbing is actually a negative reinforced touch. And instead you say, oh, you wanted that? And then touch my face gently. Let's reach for that gently. And you show the behavior you want. So oftentimes people stop the unwanted behavior instead of modeling the wanted behavior. And then this big idea of connecting before you correct. You're grabbing for that. You must want that right away. Do you want that right away? You know, I bet you if you say, can I have that back? And then they'll say it, they'll get it back. So you start to really model those pro-social behaviors. So those are the short answers to those questions. And then on my website, you can find a lot more resources and materials. But this emotional family bank account, again, that big antecedent of, it will really help you notice, I think, some behaviors, and it will give you a little bit more insight when you're responding more to bids to figure out, you know, what is really going on. You know, and responding positively sometimes to a child's negative bid will take them by surprise. You know, oh, you're so upset. How can I help? And really helping yourself stay calm and cool and collected in your amygdala, so you get your executive functioning online, so you can emotion coach them through it, right? So really thinking about that upstairs, downstairs brain, and what I'm expecting out of my child, and you know, what I'm expecting out of myself. I liked a parent that said out in the public, she pretends like she's at home, because she's like, at home I handle these things so well. In public I feel so shamed right away that I start to get nervous, and then I start to lose my voice and tone with my child. And so she does a little trick of pretending she's at home. Another trick you can do with children when you think you're going to lose your temper is pretend they're not your child. And what I mean by that is pretend this is your best friend's child. If this is your best friend's child, you're not going to lose it on your best friend's child. You're going to get up into your executive brain. You're going to just take the elevator straight up, and you're going to think of all the tools you have to respond differently. And so that's what you want to do. You want to get in your upstairs brain so that you can help your child calm their downstairs brain. So that is it. We are at 1:02, so we went just a couple minutes over, but I'll stay on for a few minutes if anyone has questions.
Thank you so much, Maryellen. I just wanted to, there was one more question that was submitted quite like a last minute registration. So yes. I can ask that on this parent's behalf, or I can also, like, we can watch the chat and see if anyone else has any questions.
Oh, yeah, I haven't even looked at the chat. So. Are there any other quick questions? Hi, Elaine. Hi. I thought I saw Valeria. Hi. Hi.
Thank you. Not half of it because I'm with my childcare kids, and I really enjoyed the different key points you pointed out, because a lot of my parents wonder, oh, why do they eat at home? I mean, here and not at home, and just different things that, you know, I would love someday for you to speak to my parents. You know, it's just so great. You know, you're the way you just brought everything on is amazing. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for the feedback, and I'd be happy to. Please reach out.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any comments or any thoughts around, you know, what you feel like, yeah, this is a win for me. Like, I'd actually like to hear, like, was there anything in the presentation that you saw that you're like, I am doing that. I do that with my kid, and you feel good that your bank account is like, we might have a fuller bank account than we thought we did. Christina has a big smile. What do you want to say, Christina?
Hi. I just thought your presentation was great. A lot of things I feel like, we're doing as a family, just positive reinforcement during difficult times. But, I think my husband and I both still feel very exhausted throughout the day. And like, how do we give Bodhi the attention and respond to the bids, but still working from home and doing what we need to do. So we feel like we're just being pulled in so many different directions constantly. But this has been so helpful because I feel like you've really kind of paved the way to doing more and doing better.
Well, this is one of the way grandparents can help. So I would say it doesn't have to be you responding to all of Bodhi's bids at all. This is, I love it when I talk to my nephew and I get to give him more attention on the phone. And this is when you put someone else on the phone, even at home in a pandemic, and you say, oh, you'd like some attention? Let me call so-and-so. And seriously, because you think about how many people are isolated and alone, and people really love connection. So make a list and call those people, email them and say, we need help with Bodhi giving him attention. He's an only child. We'd like him to, be out there, connecting with other people. What are good times to call you? When are you available? And we would, we'd like that to happen. He had a conversation with us at the beginning. He's a good talker.
He talks so much. That's the other thing, which leads me into that, because he talks so much that we tend to be, I think, just exhausted because we can't keep up with his brain sometimes. So I think getting more people involved is probably a good thing.
So I'll give you a little trick for that. So you teach him how to record himself on Zoom or on FaceTime. So I do this with a child client who's an only child, and she just her parents are both working at home in the pandemic. Like, there's just not a lot of attention. In fact, she doesn't even need therapy anymore. She's just, with me because she's by herself so much. And she does her own little like TV shows, and she watches them back. And, it's a way to get her to talk. Someone's listening, the recording is listening, and then she shows her parents later and they watch clips. They don't have to watch the whole thing.
So cool. That's awesome. Okay.
And then you ask everyone, what are you doing? How are you getting the talker? So yeah, and then you channel it as well. I would say you channel it into things like, that's such a great idea. Why don't you draw about that right now? That's such a great idea. Grandma would love to hear about that.
Thank you. That's so helpful.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. Any other questions? I know we had some people join late. This has been recorded. Yeah. So if you joined late, you can get the recording. Pooja, how do people get the recording?
We'll be sending an email out. So if you opted into receiving emails after this during the registration, we'll definitely be sending out this, as well as a recap of a blog post with all the kind of highlights from this as well.
And then if you didn't sign up for emails, I can forward it to you if you have my email.
Yeah, and you should all, at the very least, have gotten my email from, sending you the webinar information. So if you haven't opted in and you'd still like this information in particular or whatever, please do feel free to email me. That's all you have to do is, I think, reply directly to the email with the webinar information.
And then I'll send Pooja the information on temper tantrums, so maybe you can put that in as yours as well. And I will say, I did not write these articles on temper tantrums, but there were 3 articles I really liked. So
awesome.
Hopefully they'll be helpful. Yeah.
Well,
any other
if there's time, there's one last question from a parent who signed up last minute, who said that she's working with her 8-year-old on building his self-esteem. Having meltdowns when he thinks something isn't perfect. And has a hard time letting go, and says that his head feels panicky and his tummy feels angry, and any tips on how to help him overcome that.
Yeah, thank you. You always forget like one thing when you're presenting. So
mindfulness. No worries. I think this was quite last minute. I might not have even gotten it.
That's okay. So I would really think about, so first of all, you can't do the upstairs brain. You can't address the perfectionism until you address the feeling, the offline, the dysregulation. So it's not going to hurt him. I mean, one of the interesting things is he's also telling you, I'm letting my anxiety kind of get the best of me. And sometimes emotions process speed over accuracy. Okay, so I'll say that again. Emotions process speed over accuracy. What that means is that he is responding to the anxiety that is coming from it's not good enough instead of what is accurate about the situation. So he's going into like fight flight, but there's no threat. Okay, so when you understand that, you can say, all right, so sort of like if I'm baking cookies and the smoke alarm goes off, and my response is I run out of the house. And every time my smoke alarm goes off when I'm baking cookies, I just run out of the house. Now, what would my friend say to me? What? Didn't you check and see? Okay, so sometimes, but before I can check and see, I might have to do this. Take a deep breath. Okay, so I would talk to him in a calm moment about the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain and make a plan and say, when you're having this moment and you are really frustrated, we're first going to do some breathing, some belly breathing. Then we're going to step away from this. We're going to take a short walk. We're going to put water on our wrists, which can really cool down your nervous system a lot. We're going to hum. That gets me into a different part of my brain, okay? We're going to think about that saying we came up with. It's not about perfection, it's about progress, right? Messy parenting, progress, not perfection. Maybe his helpful thought is, it's okay, I can try again. So you get the helpful thought. So then you use these tools, okay? And then when he seems to be calmer, then you orient him to the time and place. So, this is practice, right? This is not a test. This is practice. This is we're learning, and sometimes it's really hard for kids when they're an only child or they're younger, they have older siblings, and they see the concept is not like, I'm an adult, I've lived longer, and I've had longer to practice this skill. The concept is you can do it and I can't, right? So the more you kind of front load this around stories about people who learned over time to do things, so you have kind of that moment of mindfulness, calming the downstairs brain. You have an antecedent, another time when he's calm, talking about this upstairs, downstairs brain. You're making your plan. And then you have your longer term antecedent, which is you are planning out stories so he understands and he has something to retrieve of, oh, right, Einstein didn't create his theory. He was a little boy once and he did this, right? You think about some great people in the world like Winston Churchill. A lot of people know who he is. He didn't even come into his career until his 50s. Who was he before then, right? And so you give examples. Madame Curie, she made a lot of mistakes before she figured out what she figured out and won a Nobel Prize, right? So you start showing all the failures of really successful people to show nothing comes, at first. You show the artists that make mistakes. I love the art where you can see the drawing, the pencil underneath, and you're like, see, even good artists use a sketch sometimes to paint. So you want to have those stories. So that's what I would say about the 8-year-old. So you have your short-term calming down the brain, longer-term goal, setting up for success, helping your 8-year-old understand more about the way their brain works. And then the longer-term goal of giving him more examples and stories of real-life people where mistakes, it's more about praising the effort, not the outcome or intelligence. So do not say to your kids, you're so smart. You say to your kids, you worked so hard on that. Look at that. That's so fascinating. Wow, you put a lot of work into that. I can tell, right? So praising effort. And that's Carol Dweck's work. Yeah. The effort effect, mindset out of Stanford.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Maryellen. I think everyone will agree that was incredibly insightful, and we're really grateful for you being so generous with your time. And I will, as I mentioned, I will be sending out the resources that Maryellen mentioned, the recording of this, and sort of the highlights from this webinar via email. And if you didn't opt into the emails when you registered for the event, please feel free to email me directly and I'll send that over to you.
And I just want to thank everybody and Pooja for hosting me. This was so much fun, and I love seeing the people I know, some of my friends and some new people, and I hope you got something out of it, and feel free to follow up if you need help with anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.